Hello, podcast universe. Anyway, started like that. So we are at Panther Studios in Reigate. Amazing. And we're just going to have a quick walk around the little studio and have a chat to Richard, who owns the studio. Come with me. I hope we can use this sanitizer. Okay. Let's go in. So here we are. Oh, my little broadcast voice. Yeah, so here we are inside Panther Studios in Reigate, and this is Richard, who owns it. Hi, Richard.
Yeah.
Hiya.
I'm Holly. This is Ed.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
We did meet on arrival, but I just thought for the thing we'll say hello.
Introduce ourselves again.
So, yeah, tell us a bit about the studio and how it came about.
Okay. It all started. I used to play in a lot of bands in the 70s and 80s, and a little bit of success with a band called Turnpole Tudor, who we had a couple of hits with. And then I toured with some other bands, King Kurt, and did some road crewing for Screaming Blue Messiahs and different rock bands. And then I decided to start a record label. So we had a record label where we were signing artists to the label, but it was costing us a fortune in recording costs. I mean, any profit we made in record sales, we were ploughing back into putting bands into studios. So we decided, my partner and I decided to the best thing for us to do if we wanted to make any money from it was to build our own studio to record the artists. And so I needed somewhere to live as well, because I know where to live. So I found this house in Reigate, which had this little outbuilding that we're standing in now. It was an old fallen down shed, but we rebuilt it all with bearing in mind that we wanted it to be a recording studio. So we soundproofed it all the walls, the ceilings, the roof, the floors, everything was all soundproofed. And we used it for recording the bands on the record company, and that enabled us to then make a profit for the first time. But unfortunately, my partner, who was only doing it part-time really, him and his wife decided to move to Cumbria and start a village shop, open a village shop in Braithwaite in Cumbria, which left me with the record company folding and left me with the recording studio. So I've just carried on running the recording studio ever since.
So it's always been called Panther?
Always called Panther Studios. The name comes from a pub over the road. It used to be called the Panther pub. And I thought, for want of a better name, we'll call it Panther Studios, because at least it's a landmark, you know,
yeah.
people know. So that's how the name came about, Panther Studios. And we've had lots of fairly well-known artists down here. We've had a lot of punk bands come and record here. We had Adamant came and recorded here. And we have Captain Sensible from The Damned comes and records here. For his side shoot band, the Sensible Grey Cells, they record here. Chelsea punk band just finished their third album here. And Johnny Moped from Croydon, one of the first ever punk bands, you know. And then lots of local bands, obviously, pop bands, bands doing demos for themselves, bands doing a lot of DIY stuff. Yeah. So they obviously they record 3 or 4 tracks, maybe 6 tracks sometimes, and put out an EP or put it on Spotify that way. And I find the younger artists tend to use Spotify and those kind of things a lot. They tend to have a lot of success that way, whereas the older artists, sort of my age, they always want it on vinyl or CD.
Yeah.
You know, so we a lot of the bands now. In fact, in the other room over there is a lot of bits of vinyl. I mean, nowhere near as much as what we've done, but there is a sample or some samples of some of the vinyl we've done in the last 2 or 3 years. You know, so. And CDs, we've got piles of CDs. All these CDs, apart from that Black Star one, and well, apart from the David Bowie one, he hasn't recorded here. Although his wife has. We did have Angie Bowie came and recorded some tracks here. Yeah. So unfortunately, they weren't married at the time, so David didn't come down with her. But you know, yeah. And so we've got piles and piles of CDs. And just loads of albums that we've recorded here. Some have been fairly successful. We've had a few chart hits with some singles. The most recent one was the Sensible Grey Cells one, which got to number 5, I think, in the charts, which is pretty good.
What is your setup, Rich?
Okay, well the setup is it's a bit sort of analogue and a bit digital. The studio initially was purely analogue. We had reel-to-reel tapes. A 16-track reel-to-reel and a 2-track stereo mastering machine that we did all our recording on, and the analog desk. This is a vintage Malcolm Hill, sorry, a vintage Allen and Heath desk, which is kind of an adapted live desk really. But this came out of the rehearsal studios in London, where I believe it was used for One Direction. Used to rehearse there, and also when they were doing rehearsals for programs like Jules Holland and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So, and I happened to know the guy that ran the studio, and they were basically buying a load of new equipment. And so I bought this off him at a cut down price and kind of modified it for recording, and it's a lovely little desk, very easy to use. But basically we do it all in the box nowadays with computers, as everybody does. We tend to use Cubase. We do have versions of Pro Tools and Logic available as well, but I was brought up on Cubase, I'm afraid. You know, that's what I started with. I know it inside out. I know all the different versions of it.
You stick to the tools that you learn on.
It's quicker. I mean, you know, I used to teach Logic at a college, you know, and I know Logic and I know Pro Tools, but I just favour Cubase. I love Cubase. I just think it does everything I need it to do. And
Have you ever tried it? I've never tried
I've
it.
never
I've heard
tried
of it. But
I
I've
had it
never
on an
tried
old Mac once, but that's as far as I got with it.
Well, Cubase isn't very stable on Macs. You know, I think that what it is that Logic was designed to work on the Mac operating system, and Cubase has been designed to work on PCs. And I think as they've grown up, the stability, you know, I have tried using Logic on this system because we've got it installed, but it doesn't feel very stable. It feels like it's going to crash any minute, you know, whereas this feels like it's solid. And I've heard the same reports from people running Cubase on Macs, that it doesn't feel stable. But it's mainly down to preference, I think.
So you're running Snakebox, presumably, from the live room into here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Please talk me through again.
Okay. So we have a box in the other room with the XLR connectors, cabled through the wall into the mixing desk. So direct in from the microphone to the inputs on the mixing desk.
Yeah.
But we then have each of the channels on the mixing desk can be accessed through the patch bay, so we can link up any item of equipment on here to any channel on the patch bay. So anything we want to add outboard wise while we're recording, like if you want to put compression or a noise gate on the microphone, we can do it all via the patch bay. So we don't have to keep pulling wires and everything. We just literally, it's like a telephone exchange. We just connect things together.
Quite a lot of nice outboard gear you have there.
Yes, I mean again it's accumulated over the years. When the studio was purely analogue, we used this all the time. All the DBX compressors, the reverb units, noise gates, another couple of compressors there. All this equipment was used all the time. But over the years, as we've gone more and more digital and we've got more and more plugins, this gets used less and less. So we tend now to only use this on some, if we're recording a drum kit, we might use some of the compressors and noise gates put on the snare drum or the bass drum. Sometimes when we record a vocal, it might, if it's somebody who's got a very dynamic range on their voice, we might use the compressor. You know. But it's usually.
So does it depend on who you've got in, basically? Yes. So if it's younger, would you say you do it more?
Yeah.
In the box.
Yeah, we still.
And then if it's older generation, we call them, you use the Apple gear.
Yeah, that kind of tends to be. Although I tell you though, the youngsters now, you know, the 17, 18-year-olds that come here recording, they ask to use all the analog stuff. They want to use the hardware. So we kind of try to please them. The only thing I do say is when it comes to the mixing, let's do it in the computer, because it just takes forever to mix analog, you know. So we tend to get it all in the computer.
It's the warm sound, isn't it?
Running it through,
and we use all this gear if they want us to use it. Some studios don't have any of this. They literally have microphones into some kind of mic preamp straight into the computer, and that's all they have, you know, which is fine. It totally in the box, completely in the box. But
that's what we are.
Yeah, that's fine.
Trying to stay away from that too. I love my analog gear, and I'm the type of person who I can appreciate digital and how that has developed in regards to music production, but there's just something about physically using something. Yeah, you know, adds a lot of it. It makes you think more. It does.
It makes you more careful as well when you're actually recording the process. It makes you more careful to capture the performance correctly. Because nowadays, what we tend to do, if we're doing a vocal for argument's sake, is that we just get the singer to go and just sing it 10 times, just sing it 10 times, and then we just go through and pick all the best bits out afterwards. Yeah. That's what we do. In the old days, you'd be in there with the vocalist, you'd be going, that line there, can you just sing that line again? And you have to drop it in and drop it out, you know, and or that word there wasn't quite right. And you'd spend hours on each line, where now you just sit here in the computer.
Yeah, yesterday when I did a session, I think we did it about 4 or 5 times, and then I was like, it's okay if it sounds off, because I'll just put them all together for the best bit. And he was like, okay, and it was like... happy.
Yeah. Well, I find that a lot, especially the singers, and they're quite happy to just do that, and they can go to the pub and have a drink, you know, and let me get on with it. But that's how recording has changed a lot, and the same with drummers as well. Is a drummer will come in, because a lot of the way that we record nowadays is unlike in the old days. A band would rehearse and practice, and then you come in and you record like drums, bass and guitar, maybe a guide vocal to start and build the track up that way. What happens a lot nowadays is a lot of the music is done in reverse. So you have a click track, you might program a very rough drum track on it with the computer. Everybody plays all their guitar parts and vocals to that, and the drummer comes in last and puts the drums on over it at the end. And what they tend to do as well, drummers they'll just play. I'll just play a verse part and a chorus part, and you know the solo bit, and then you just compile it all together. Yeah. And you can edit it and quantize it and make it sound nice. You know. So again, the whole technique of recording has in the last 20 years has changed.
I'm going to ask a really good question here. Did you want to?
4 minutes
enough? Yeah, that's
yeah.
Right. She's got to cut all the things.
Okay,
I was going to ask about what plugins you've got open.
Oh, at the moment, plugins open at the moment. Yeah, it's not that many on this track.
Like an organ over there.
This is a Hammond.
Hammond.
That's just a Hammond plugin. And then we've got open here now. I've got Contact on here. It's a piano. That's all that's on those two, so it's a piano. Then for reverb, that's just a mixing console. It's in Cubase. The reverb I use is the Lexicon, and that's basically what the BBC use. So it's a reverb, an echo unit basically that you can adjust, you know, for different sounds. But I really like the reverbs in there. So at the moment, they're the only plugins I'm using on this particular track. I tend to use the onboard processors quite a bit, like the noise gates and the compressors and things in Cubase. They're very easy to use, and and they got the presets are pretty good as well. So if you don't know how to use the compressor, you can just find one that says lead vocal and just and it's set up. Then you can mess around with it.
I advise presets. I do advise presets because some people don't know what they're doing, and then if you put the preset on, then you can adjust. What fits.
It's like a preset EQ. Or something for a vocal.
Over the years, I have sold a lot of stuff. I mean, when it was all analog in here, we had banks. That tower we got over there is what's left. There were 2 towers like that, and a lot of it we just didn't use at all. So we just sold it, or gave it away. I have a couple of clients that come from Africa and from Ghana, and they come over and they record here, and they did always, have you got any old equipment that you don't use anymore, because we'll take it back with us, and we'll, so any old broken gear I've got, I give it to them. Any stuff I don't use, I let them have it, and they take it back to Ghana and they fix it, and then they give it to kids or something to use, in the schools. So so we get rid of it somehow.
So this is your...
That's the old reel-to-reel stuff. Yeah, that's the this is the Fostex. Sorry, this is a Revox, and that's the Fostex there. The Fostex half-inch machine is a 16-track analog machine, and the Revox is a 2-track, just a stereo tape machine. Runs at 7.5 or 15 IPS. And those machines there, we used for the first 10 years we were here. We used them all the time. That's all we used, nothing else. We did actually get a digital audio tape, a DAT player recorder, which superseded the reel-to-reel. So we used to record everything on the Fostex, and then master onto the DAT. We bought an Atari 1040 ST, which we linked up.
He's laughing.
You know about the Atari, MIDI. That was really the first sort of proper MIDI stuff that came out. Really, it was the Atari 1040 ST, and I think we ran a program called Pro 24 on it. But you can only record MIDI. That's all it was for. So then we had to buy banks of samplers. We had a bank of Akai samplers that you could record drum sounds and shouty noises, and we would sync that to the tape machine. So we had a little SMPTE box, SMPTE, which is a signal generator, which you then put the code onto one track of the tape machine, and then you play that back through the box, and it generates a code, a digital code, a clock code that you can then run all your computers from. So then you could sync up the tape recorder to all the computers. So you could then have the keyboards, the drum machines, the samplers all running, and the tape machine that you could record vocals and guitars, saxophones, all that kind of thing.
So do you get many people saying, I just want to use that?
Sometimes,
yeah.
Sometimes bands, and we find that more and more it's the younger bands that ask to do it. The older guys are quite happy to do it. It's really funny. The situation was I was brought up on the analog stuff, and as a sound engineer, it was always a battle of gaining the quality, getting the quality good. You had to battle against tape hiss. Things like tape recorders and that, they have a physical contact, and any physical contact makes extra noise. So as a sound engineer, you're always trying to compensate for the additional noise caused by the machinery and the tape recorder and everything else.
People didn't want the saturated sound, did they?
And now they do. And now they do. And that's it. And now you get all the plugins that can put the tape hiss and the sound of all the scratching and the noise back onto your recording.
I own all those plugins, Obsessed. I am slightly obsessed, and Ed always says that I am obsessed with these plugins.
You love it.
I do.
Lo-fi.
So that's made me really happy looking at that. And that's the first thing I clocked when I walked in.
Let's not sell you short. You don't just own all the plugins. You bought a reel-to-reel.
I did. Yeah.
So you could specifically sample your own sound and add it into your tracks.
And in
sad.
fact, Holly's particular reel trill is even better because it's one of those ones that doesn't have a motorised capstan, so the speed changes over time.
Yeah,
so it actually does create a pretty good like sort of wild sound.
Someone did say, "What is that horrendous noise at the start?" And I went, "Well, that's actually me pressing play on the button." And they went, "Oh, is it supposed to be?" And I said,
like a thump sound.
That's what it is. And they were like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." He was going to ask me to take it off. I was like, no,
I want it. I like it.
So, with regards to analog recording, when was the last time you like properly recorded using the analog equipment?
All analog.
All analog.
I would say probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I would say.
Okay.
The most recent thing I've done is do some transfers. I get a lot of bands, again older guys, that have been to studios because back in the sort of like the 70s and 80s, that was pretty much how all studios or small studios were set up. They all had a machine like that, and an Akai or something. So I do get a lot of bands that come and they say, we recorded something, 30 or 40 years ago on a 1/2 inch tape. Can you remix it? So I stick it on there, and all I do is I transfer it all into the computer. And then kind of play around with it in the computer and then remix it for them. And that's the only time I tend to use that now. It's more as a playback machine for people that have got old recordings, Well, I say this. There is a little innovation there with the computer screen there, and that's cause of COVID. Brought that about.
So they can see what you're
because they obviously got the speakers up here, so they can hear. So what we find now is that because we're a bit lack of space here. In bigger studios, you might get the band, the musicians stand behind the producer and listen to the thing, and see what they're doing. But we couldn't do it in here, so we put the screen there so that bands can sit on us comfortably here, and
see,
just move that bit over there a bit, or that little bit there. Can you cut that out? I don't like that bit, so they can be involved with the
pretty interesting
innovation.
Yeah. I feel like most studios should have something like that.
Yeah.
We tend to just make people sit far away from us and then just sort of go like that and see if
they can see what you're doing then, can't
That's
they?
exactly. They can be part of it. Yeah. They can, especially with the editing and everything. And the other thing that's handy as well is because it's all Bluetooth in here. If I'm recording myself on a project, so I put a bit of guitar on something, recording there, I can take the keyboard in there and it's Bluetooth to the computer, and I can just about see what's on the screen.
Then you just press record.
Yeah, and
you're doing it instead of coming back.
Keep wandering backwards and forwards. Yeah. Well, so that's handy as well.
Actually, you've just mentioned that, and that's just sparked a memory in my brain. So I'm not too sure if you'll know, but the Mac, old Macs, they used to come with like these remotes and things. You could actually still, funny enough, use these remotes to interact with.
Are you talking about the little white thing?
Yeah, the remotes. You could still use them to interact with Logic. Things like that.
Yeah.
So that should be a proper product. That
for recording, ideal. Exactly. You can do a fast forward, replay. Because all the only functions I use when I'm recording would really be fast forward, rewind, play and record.
Yeah.
And erase.
Yeah.
Obviously for the bits that you don't like, but yeah. So the functions are very minimal, and all I do is on the keyboard. I've just marked on my keyboard some little stickers what each key, the hotkeys do, and I just sit in there with it, and I can just sit there and just play with it in there, and it's just saves me running around.
Yeah.
We should try that, Ed, with the little remote you said, because I've got like two that I just.
The powers above should definitely make like a proper, maybe a remote app, or maybe have like a proper tool.
Because they've got this
you have the overlays for keyboards and things. So why don't you have like a
absolutely?
They've got Logic Remote, Ed. Did you know that?
Copyright it.
Logic Remote.
Logic Remote.
Yeah, they've got Logic Remote.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you. Look, so what it is?
On your phone.
Yeah.
Oh, there
so what you can do
is
if it's connected to your Logic, it'll tell you. I'm like advertising for them now. So yeah, connect to Logic or GarageBand. You can connect it, and then you can press record. So if I'm in that room here, I can press it, and then like the faders. It works better on an iPad.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that's what a lot of the studios use, iPad. So I mean that would all work on an iPad.
Yeah.
Or any tablet really. But add the app for it.
Modernising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Becoming digital.
But I just take the keypad in there, and it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
So live room, this bit.
Yep.
This is the live room.
Drums. Where do you usually plonk them?
Normally with the drum kit. This is just a house kit. I've got in our little shed outside. I've got all the cymbal stands and everything for it, and snare drums stuff. But literally, this is, if anybody wants to use it, they're welcome to. If a band bring their own drum kit, I just shove that in the shed and they just set their own drum kit here. But what we tend to do is just use this whole area here for the drums. And if anybody wants to play along with them, they normally just stand in the other room and plug their guitars either into their amp or straight into the mixing desk or whatever, so the drummer can hear it through the headphones. We've got plenty of headphone sockets around that everyone can plug their headphones into.
Pretty useful to have the like headphone sockets on walls. I've noticed in some studios they don't really have those types of wall sockets in particular area. They'll have it in a most ridiculous part of the room or something.
Well, we've got one there. We've got one over on the floor over there. And also, I mean, as I say, it's a small room anyway, so we have got some extension cables on the headphone. So that if anybody wants to sort of stand right where you are and it doesn't reach over to there, we've got an extension leads and things. But yeah, again, the way that things are recorded nowadays is that a lot of times it's the drums are the last thing to go on anyway. So we find that it's quite rare for a whole band to come in and record in one go. It's very unusual nowadays. Even if a rock band want to do it the old-fashioned way, they'll only record, say, 3 instruments. So they record we'll set the drums up in here. They'll probably want to record the bass, a rhythm guitar, and a guide vocal to go with it. And that's just so that the drummer can get the drums recorded. And once the drums are recorded, we may keep the bass guitar as well, because obviously if he's a good bass player, as long as there's no mistakes on it, we can keep that as well. But then, once the drums are recorded, we go through the process of wheeling the amplifiers in here, and then the guitarist can get a good sound on his guitar, and then do all the overdubs. So we do all his overdubs, guitars, vocals, backing vocals.
So we have this ongoing thing where we tell people that everything's not going to happen in one session, like it's not going to be complete. No. So even if you book an 8-hour session, it's not all going to happen in that 8-hour session. No. Like, I seem to walk around like I'm quite relaxed, and I think people think not urgent enough,
well,
and it's like no,
we are,
but it's never going to happen in 8 hours. Like it's just impossible.
Again, one of the advice I give to new bands or young bands is don't try to do too much in one day. I mean, we have done sessions in here where bands have come in and recorded 5 or 6 songs, sometimes 8 songs in a day, and they want it all mixed and finished, at the end of the day. And I just say, well, we try it. I said, it probably sound rubbish, you just get a rough mix and everything, but that's not how it's done, and that's not what happens in the studio. You go to a recording studio to get the best sound you can, and you're much better off just working on 2-3 songs maximum in a day, be well rehearsed and get 3 songs done and get them sounding pretty good, rather than 8 songs and all sounding rubbish.
Microphones. Talk microphones.
Microphones.
What microphones have you got?
Well, we've got two microphones that mainly we use for vocals. We've got this, and I recommend people also if anyone's got home studios to get one of these. This has been a game changer. They're about 30 quid, and it's basically it's an insulation thing. It's nice thick foam with a pop shield at the beginning, at the front there, and it just kind of stops all the room sound getting into the mic. So I've been really pleased with that since I've had it. I've only had it about a year or so, and I'm really pleased with it. So I'll recommend, if you're doing any vocal recording in a room that's not treated, get one of those.
Put it in my Amazon basket.
There you go. So this is a Rode NT2A, I think that is. NT2A. As opposed to the NT1, the NT2 has got all the roll-offs and the polar pattern change on here. We find that's it's a really good mic. It's comparable to the U87, the Neumann, in its frequency response. Maybe a bit hard on the top end, maybe very slightly, but that's about a £250 microphone as opposed to a Neumann, which is like £2,500, you know. So U87, and also it depends. There's no point in having a U87 like a a £2,500 microphone if you're going through a £500 mixing desk, you know. So you're defeating the object, really, you know. And then this one is the classic Electro voice. It's the RE20. We use that a lot for vocals as well. Very popular in America. That's a bit more expensive than this one. These one to buy is about £500 to buy, plus the cradle is about another £100 for the cradle.
It's the best one I've actually seen, because usually the ones I've seen are all battered.
Battered, yeah. They're an old. That's a brand new one. I mean, we've only had that in a few months, but they usually do get battered a lot. They end up in a lot of radio studios, you know. A lot of the DJs, especially the kind of the rapper type DJs, like them, use them a lot. So yeah, that's we for vocals. It's usually a toss up between those two microphones. Obviously, the pop shield goes on the front of that one. We sometimes do use other pop shields, which I mean it's very important to use a pop shield, but we have these ones. These ones as well, which are the sort of the classic mesh ones that go in the front, but we just tend to use those as our pop shields.
What are the top ones? You've got the overheads at the top of it.
Yeah, overheads for the drums. Yeah, we use those for the just to pick up the cymbals for when we mic up the drum kit and everything. They come down. These are actually. There's a little invention that I did, just to say, just keep putting mic stands up so you can actually move these around.
They on lamps.
Yeah.
Lamps. Oh wow.
That's a clever idea.
So you can move them around to wherever you want position and everything. It saves getting a mic stand out every time you want to put the overheads on, to do it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it just it's copyrighted.
Yeah.
We can't use that. We're like, okay, we'll throw you under the bus.
That's not very nice.
I know, but
oh, you're telling everything.
have you got any questions for us? Or look, see, we always get that like not prepared. Sometimes I like to prepare the guests, and sometimes I don't.
I've got a question. How much are you getting paid for this? Question for you.
On the spot, sorry.
What? So, you obviously do recording. So, what equipment do you use?
Ed, would you like to take this? Because he likes to talk about equipment. What's our basic setup, basically?
My mind's gone blank. So we.
Blimey, you've taken them on the spot and put them on the spot.
Yeah, you just reversed it. Right. Okay. Right. So when we do our live video and audio, what do we do? When we walk in to live video and audio, what do we do?
Oh well, then we mic up a room. So it's Holly's idea mainly. So we, as a collective, have the idea of doing a room recording of the band, and it's pretty much what we were speaking about earlier on, the sort of placements of musicians. So we will use 4 microphones around the room in each corner, and then we'll also have a vocal mic or something.
Okay.
That's traditionally how we record. What types of microphones do we have around the room?
We usually use condensers. And they're all phantom powered.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, because what we plug them into our audio interface, and we just switch on the phantom power, so they're all connected up, and then we adjust the levels and stuff. So it's like, I don't know where I got it from or why I got this idea from.
I think it's the sound, isn't it? It's the type of sound.
I feel like I could explain it better than you two are.
So you're doing location recording, basically. Is that what you do?
Yeah.
You don't have a set place that you record. You go
we
to
do.
Where...
Yeah. So that was our first.
Yes. Well, we do have.
We are doing such a bad thing.
Can I do it?
No.
Please, can I just say out loud what is in my head so that you can repeat me then?
Okay.
So you do a 60s style room recording,
right?
Usually using 4 channels.
Yes.
And you have 2 overhead microphones which are placed above the drum kit, but usually also to pick up the PA system in which you'd feed the vocal mic through, and the guitars, unless there's a specific sound someone wants on an amp.
Yeah.
And then you'd also have obviously the vocal mic, as I mentioned, and you have a condenser mic towards the front of the room to capture the sound that you'd hear as an audience member watching this band perform live. That's only when you're doing your live audio and video sessions. When you're not doing that, you do traditional studio style recording based in not a fixed studio location, but in various locations. So you've got a studio in West London that you use a lot. But you also have access to studios in Guildford and in other areas. With the live video and recording, obviously you go remote with it, but with the studio recording, usually that'd be based in West London, and you do a much more traditional setup that way.
Yeah,
so did that answer your question, Rachel? She should do it, not ask me.
I told you I could answer that question.
And then
you can just overdub that over the top.
Yeah. I mean, that's the basis of what we do, and then we also do like video, music videos and stuff like that.
See, I'm not a fan of. I quite prefer the idea of being just sitting in a studio and just recording a band traditionally. Because you have so many issues that crop up when you're sort of miking up a room and a vocal.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is,
but it's the sound, isn't it? It's the sound, and it's the
live
vibe.
video. I mean, because people can't gig, that's what they want at the moment, and it just sort of happened that we have done more of that stuff than studio, because people are just, they want to do that, and because obviously they can't get on a stage, and
I'm just a sound engineer. I just do my mic, do the mics, and just sit behind the desk and check levels.
And what do you set yourself up in a room off the set, or do you sit there with headphones?
So if we were doing it, if it's a live thing, we sit away in the same room with headphones on and our gear, and just listen.
Thank you so much, Richard, for
my pleasure.
Letting us into your studio and talk.
Yes, it's been a
geek with you.
Very lovely experience.
Jolly good, it has been. Yeah, it's been a lovely afternoon.
Lovely. And then we'll let Becca just do her thing, and then we'll just continue talking.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, dear. Well, that was pleasant.
It was alright.
Let us know if you
place.
want us to do one of these videos again and keep this podcast like this, or you prefer the old format of podcast. Do
People
let
like
us know.
stuff old school, Holly.
Oh yeah, well, just let us know in the comments or whatever. So thank you very much for watching the series.
Thanks very much.
Very
Been
nice.
When are we coming back, Holly? When are we starting again?
I don't know it. That's a put on the spot question.
In the new year.
In the new year.
We'll see you soon.
You go that way, I'll go this way.